welcome to our fourth webinar of today's Marketing Showcase online for October. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've been enjoying today's webinars. We've had some great talks about Google Ads, we've talked about technology, CRM, and this morning's talk on content marketing from Felicity Allen was brilliant too. So we've got 3 talks left today. This one is presented by James Skellington from SoAmpli, and he's going to be talking about social media, employee advocacy through social media rather. Just before we get into that, I just want to run you through the Zoom etiquette. So we've got a few things going on today. You can use the chat to talk to me and your other attendees. Please put hello in there, chat away. I'd like to see there a bit of engagement. This is an event after all. And if we were in person, we'd be talking to each other anyway. So let's do it via the chat. That's brilliant. If you have a question for James that we'll answer at the end, pop that in the Q&A function. So if his talk brings up anything particularly that you want an answer to, use the Q&A function separate to the chat so I don't miss it. I'd really like to get underway nice and quickly. You're probably getting bored of seeing me. So at this point, I'd like to invite James to the stage.
Thanks, Ashley. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you everybody for attending today. Looking forward to showing you today's presentation. If I just look to share my screen, there we go. So today I'm going to be talking about SoAmpli and more importantly the importance and power of employee advocacy and how to reach your audience. If anybody would also like, there's a few things on offer today. First of all, the presentation, today's slides. Second of all, we have a guide which has got a rather lengthy title, but it's effectively 8 ways which you can empower your team through employee advocacy to strengthen your brand advertising and reach. If you'd just like to put a note in the live chat to say yes please, Ashley and I can sort you out with both the slide deck and the guide. Pardon me. Secondly, as well, this does revolve around employee advocacy, but also the SoAmpli platform. There are a couple of other tools out there that do what we do. At the moment, what I would like to offer to anybody who is interested at the end of this is a 6-week trial of the SoAmpli platform free of charge. Try it, see what you think. But hopefully off the back of today's talk, you'll also be intrigued as to how you can leverage, as well as have some ideas as to how you can utilize employee advocacy through your own business. So to set the scene, we all know what COVID period has been like, as well as the modern times of social media. I won't take you through this as a step-by-step, you can read it yourselves, but today what we're going to be looking at is what is social advocacy, how are people currently engaging with social media, how a business is currently using it, and also take you through into what we see the future as being and how you can also utilize SoAmpli and tools such as SoAmpli to reach out. And also what the biggest thing that businesses aren't using right now, which is the networks of their employees to reach and broadcast. So as I just mentioned there, the social media and employee advocacy is really an untapped resource. It's something that all businesses have access to, yet very few of us are actually taking advantage of. If you think about the networks that, you know, within your business and even maybe yourself, people have been cultivating networks and a network over their entire business career. And in some businesses, people have got 30 or 40 years worth of connections. Yet those are being seldomly leveraged through platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, because at the end of the day, it can be quite daunting for people to have to go out and say, actually, you should be more prominent on social media. You know, you've got a large network. We need you to start going out there and talking. But in actual fact, it can be quite daunting to think about what should I be speaking about. And it's about how do we then start to cultivate content that's brand cleared, that sends a clear message about what you're trying to achieve, to engage your target audience, and therefore utilize the strength of the brand and also the employee advocacy element of their existing network. What we really need at this stage is a social media megaphone, something to assist in that sharing, to assist with reach, and more importantly as well, the measurement of digital content. So often we see that the brands are creating wonderful content and it goes out once through the brand and that's it. But here we need to understand how can we recycle, for want of a better term, and upcycle that content to be more prevalent and more penetrative within our target markets. And right now, within 2020, we see employee advocacy as being a really emerging market, and probably where something like marketing automation was 6 years ago. So we also have a marketing automation platform, so we're well in tune with how these markets are developing. But if you think about marketing automation, performance marketing, affiliate marketing, they are now core pillars of marketing strategies. Yet a few years ago, they were pretty much non-existent, unheard of. And we see employee advocacy coming through into a similar space. The beauty of this is that this is low barrier to entry, comparatively cheap compared to all the other things. There's a low resource, i.e. it's simple to use and it doesn't really take up much time from anybody. More importantly, it's high return. So from a marketeer's perspective, what more could you want? This is the sort of thing that should be easily onboarded, easy to use, and should return or can potentially show big returns for you as a business. If we look at the state of social media in 2020, you've got 4.3 billion internet users worldwide, 3.6 billion active social media users, and 3.12 million social media users alone in 2019. In the UK, that translates to 45 million social media users, 96% of which are active at least once a month, and 1.5 hours and rises spent on social media per day. I'll go into some of the stats around the COVID period right now, but it's not, I think everybody in this room will know quite well that these numbers are soaring and going through the roof through the current period right now. The UK adult population, 78% of people on Facebook, 42% on Instagram, 51% on LinkedIn, and 24% on Twitter. Now, of course, these stats can be quite misleading depending on who you are as a business or what your product, your service is. You need to understand which of these realms and which of these forums is best place for you to be present and to putting out your voice. In the B2B space, LinkedIn is obviously king. Twitter takes up a nice place, and Facebook very much a disruptor for advertising, where you are interrupting people, having a look at the friends from school, etc. During COVID, screen time is up 69%, which is insane. So if you were looking at 1.5 hours a day beforehand, we're looking well in excess of 2 hours a day now going on screen time. LinkedIn has also during this period recorded 55% more conversational activity between existing connections in recent weeks. So that tells me as well that your existing network right now is one of the most powerful and compelling things that you have in play. The cold market in LinkedIn is quite saturated at this present moment in time. People are working from home, office phone numbers aren't accessible. This is very much a forum that people are going up from the cold and where people are switching off. But the existing connections are where you can really leverage your activity. And according to Kantar as well, you've got usages up 53% on Facebook, 32% on Instagram, and year on year through Twitter is up 23% as well. So again, people are in front of their devices on the phones, and these people are looking for content to engage them and educate them further, which is where your business comes into play. What we know now from many years of experience in the marketing industry is that marketeers are spread thin, wear multiple hats, and are often encumbered by manual process. Whether this be about how do we then give you access and strength to utilising things like employee advocacy without becoming a bigger drain on the daily rigours, which are already stressful. And inevitably, when it comes to something like social media and brand content going out, these meetings tend to happen. And it's a sit down or it's an email that goes out where people are saying, we put out a piece of content. this content has been created, it talks about X, Y, Z, so if you can share it, and John, you can share it, and Sarah, you can share it, and it goes around the business as such. And what tends to happen is you talk to 50 people and 3 people might do it. Now, the reason for that isn't anybody's fault. It's because timing, they're already busy, they are spread thin, and much like the marketeers, they're working hard to take the business forward. This is a little additional piece. So what we need to be able to do is, how do we empower people to, one, be given that content freely so that they can share it, and 2, make sure that we can understand who has and who hasn't shared it. Not to be militant, but just from a measurement and metric perspective, we need to be understanding of what is the reach of this content, how far has it gone, and are we speaking to the right audiences through the right channels. And again, you know, unless we were all sat down like this, it wouldn't happen. In the more diverse world and now more siloed teams that we're working in, a lot of people working from home, having a platform like SoAmpli where all of this can be collated, you know, in order for the team to be able to access and then share, becomes far more accessible and far more important. The way that employee advocacy works is, and I hope this isn't blurring on people's screen, but you've got step 1, which is somebody within the business, it might be yourself, they create a piece of social content. They create it through SoAmpli and then post it out onto their own channels. So I may create a piece of content, which is, let's say it's going to be this document from today, the slides. I would then put it onto through SoAmpli, log in with my own chosen social media, be that Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I would choose which channels I want it to go out on. I'd also choose the content that's going to support it, i.e. the terminology, and I would share that. That content then becomes readily available for the rest of my team to, one, access and view, but also share through their network as well. So the importance here is, rather than it coming out just from me because I've created it, it then becomes available to the rest of the team. At Force24 and SoAmpli, we've got 50 people in the business. They can then have a look at that, determine whether or not they feel it's relevant to their network at this moment in time, and then choose which channels they want to share it through. And they don't have to do it right now, it can be scheduled as well. So I may say, actually, one of the things that I tend to find a lot is, if I share something on a Tuesday morning, I may also want to share it the next week on a Thursday afternoon, because we get a different level of engagement, different people as well, especially through LinkedIn, where people tend to be creatures of habit. But for us as Force24 and SoAmpli, we see our users have seen a 400% increase in their online activity. So that is engagement coming through from those channels. It's clicks coming from LinkedIn. It's clicks coming from Facebook and Twitter, and therefore coming through to our brand, where they learn to educate and understand us a little bit better. One of the key stats here, so if you can see this, we're talking here primarily about LinkedIn, because for us, that's our core channel. This is we're a B2B business. We see that what you can see here is that you've got 5,523 click-throughs during this period. What we tend to see through LinkedIn is through the brand versus employee advocacy. The employee advocacy is anywhere between 6 and 10 times more effective in delivering click-through to site. This is because I have cultivated a network over time. Anybody who is engaging with the brand is quite limited, but also the messages coming out from the brand are a sell. You know, it's very much a case of, we're broadcasting, this is me talking about our brand because I want you to buy what we do. However, if I'm talking about me as an individual through to my cultivated network, I'm talking to trusted allies, to people that I've worked with and people that I've known. So in actual fact, they don't click on that because it's selling to them. They click on it because it's understood that what I say is relevant or could be relevant to them. So they take the time. And as such, as I mentioned, anywhere between 6 and 10 times more impactful coming from the individual as opposed to the brand, which is just massive. And here they are just in those figures. So you've got the LinkedIn, so the in blue is the employee stats, the in P is the brand profile. So you can see there 96 for brand and 809 from through the employee advocacy, which is just wonderful. And this really comes down to, and A much more concise way that I phrased it is that people buy from people and not businesses. It's all about having that element of trust that comes through that network, through that time of knowing people, as opposed to the brand coming out with, this is what I want to be telling you. And the way that this works and the way that we see it is that it has to be content-led. So the content is there, it is relevant, and it is important to our target audiences. It is then shared through our advocates. So the team share that through our networks, then start to engage. And importantly, we can then learn to measure that. Which metrics are we focusing on for understanding how are we gauging success here? What does success look like? Are we generating leads? Are we generating likes? Are we just delivering people through to site? And then one of the important things that we see is the gamification side of this, where in actual fact, I need to understand how well I'm doing, or at least have sight of how I am doing, how I am reaching my audience versus other people within my team, to understand, am I leading the way here as a thought leader, as a brand ambassador, or am I falling behind, and therefore do I need to be sharing and speaking a little bit more openly about what we're great at as a business? If I talk you through the platform, just a couple of stills here, just to give you some understanding of how this works. Within the channel component of SoAmpli, what you have here is effectively a content hub. Our marketing team, our PR team, and trusted individuals within the business create content, and it becomes a hub here where I can log in and have access to and then choose which channels I share through. Also, we can have channels within this. So if you think about as an example, you may have, if we think about a digital agency, you may have a PPC channel where all of the PPC content comes in, an SEO channel where the SEO content, sales, it may be PR, and make sure that it's segmented down so that it's easily accessible to everybody in the business who can start to figure out what they want to be talking about and what is relevant for their network at that time. Here you've just got a couple that we've done, and this can then be segmented down by most recent, are most engaged with, and what topics are trending within the business as well. So a lot of people that we work with here as well using SoAmpli can use this as a form of intranet where they can be talking within each other. I like this content. I think this needs to be shared out across further pieces. Can we make campaigns about it? And again, just a really nice way of collating everybody's thoughts before it can go live. And one of the nice things about this as well is that you can have an unlimited number of accounts or social medias attached to a single profile. So for me as an individual, I can have my Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, but also I can have the brand profiles in there as well to make it easier for me to manage multiple profiles at once. What we tend to look at here is as a social content strategy is, can we get an audit in one place? Can I understand everything that's available to us at one time? Because in actual fact, not everything that the business creates for me in my position in the business is relevant for me to be talking about, or it might not be relevant at that time given my network. However, if I can audit that and understand exactly what's available to me, I can underline the objectives of what I want to achieve when I'm communicating, as well as know the audience that I'm trying to communicate with, are the three core objectives of a social content strategy. To give you some interest here, and again, these slides will be made available to people, as social content strategies, there are multiple components here where people can be talking quite freely. For us as a business, this is how we break ours down. Human interest, thought leadership, success stories, new client wins, guides and white papers, which are often some things that can be recycled as well. So in actual fact, if we create a wonderful white paper as a business, that shouldn't just be going out once. That shouldn't be given that single snapshot opportunity to engage our audience. It may be something that I push out quarterly in order to ensure that it has maximum retention and engagement. Because remember, just because it's something that you are talking about at that moment in time doesn't mean that it's necessarily something that everybody in your network is interested in. So then that becomes that big point of, when should I be recycling content and how important is it to share it again to get better reach and engagement? This slide I'll just pass through One of the other elements here, which is often overlooked, is how do you become a thought leader? Because it's very easy to talk about your own brand constantly. Yet in actual fact, there are so many things going on through the extended networking. If we think about in the marketing world, you've got things like Prolific North, B2B Marketing, Marketing Week, The Drum, who are all producing fantastic content. And through this component here in SoAmpli, we have a social listening component where we can pull RSS feeds in through from Twitter, websites, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, in order to give you relevant updates on what other people are talking about. Because if you constantly harp on about what you can do for people and your services, you become very much a single-toned musician in a lot of ways. Whereas with this way, by becoming a thought leader, you can also educate people on the broader opportunities within your market space, within your industry, and also then you start to become someone that people look to. Now, of course, this means that you have to be prevalent and relatively consistent with your presence on social media in order for people to look that way, which is why obviously here the scheduling component becomes very, very important. Other things that we're able to do as well is look at trackers, whether it be looking at your competition or leaders within your industry or other influential bodies. Start to understand what are they talking about, when are they talking, who are they talking about, and all of a sudden here you have an educational forum which gives you an understanding of if other leaders in this space are talking about X, Y, Z, should we have a view on that? Should we give our 2 cents on how this works, or should we try and evolve the conversation? Because again, thought leadership is how pioneers in the social media world are penetrating and making names for themselves, as opposed to just talking about their own brand consistently. There's some really interesting bits here as well about how long content lasts on social media. And depending on which channel you wish to be prominent upon, which is right for your business, for your industry, it's about making sure that you have the right the right opportunities here. Blogs last for the longest period of time. It's content that is recyclable, is evergreen in a lot of senses, and is one of those things that, irrespective of when people come to your site, that should be important content. On the reverse of this, you've got things like Twitter, which are very much fleeting points of view, which need to be delivered with speed and precision in order to make an impact. And you have everything else in between. But again, just something to consider before you choose the channel that you want to put specific content out on. Best times to post is one of these things that people always ask, and it's the same with email and everything else. From our experience, these have been the best times to post on channels. This doesn't mean to say that it's right for every business. There should obviously be some testing, a little bit of trial and error for people as they start to push things out. But at Force 24, this has been our experience, and through our partners as well that are currently using the SoAmpli platform. When I talked previously about leaderboards and understanding how prevalent people are and by using a platform, this is something that often gets lost when you're looking at something like Hootsuite or Buffer. Is how do we understand who's doing the most? How do we understand who's having the most impact for the business, the best reach, generating the most leads? Now, often that does partner with the most senior people in the business, those with the strongest networks. But in actual fact, we need to understand, are people being consistent here? Are they scheduling 2 or 3 posts a week? Are they constantly being seen in the public eye as a thought leader, as a brand ambassador? And what we found here is for a lot of businesses, the gamification side of this, to see a league table, is often enough to prompt the people that are less driven to be on that scene. And also a good way that you can reward the people that are doing the most. There's a few agencies that we know that are out there that are using SoAmpli at the minute, where they've given lunch vouchers to the people at the top of the month and a wooden spoon to the guys at the bottom. Just something fun to try and make sure that people are motivated to be prevalent and utilize a tool such as this. KPIs and metrics, there's all sorts of stuff within here to understand and to analyze. But remember, what we need to understand first and foremost is, what are you trying to achieve? Who are you trying to engage, and the content that needs to be created in order to do so. And then through the employee advocacy, it's about how do we then utilize the strength of the networks of the employees that are already at the business, this network that is readily available for you to communicate with, that is potentially and currently going untapped. If anybody would like to download the presentation right now, you've got the QR code, which is available here. If you scan your camera over it, it should give you an opportunity to download that. However, if you would like Ashley or myself to send that to you, along with our 8 ways to build an employee advocacy team, which is not tied into SoAmpli, it can be implemented by any business, but that's available, as well as I'm offering you guys today a 6-week trial of the SoAmpli platform if you do want to speak to me and have a bit of a conversation about how that's accessible to you. Lovely. Thank you very much for your time today, everybody. I appreciate that. Ashley, back over to you.
James, awesome, really well delivered. There was so much stuff in there that you can take away and get on with there. So yeah, follow up with yes, please, if you want to grab the slides and a couple of the bits that SoAmpli were offering there. So James, we've got about 3 minutes, right? So I want to, and you've been bombed with questions, so I want to do a whistle-stop tour through most of them and just see how we get on and how many we can answer. So couple of questions based on when you amplify that message throughout multiple social media networks, and if one person is following 2 or 3 people from the company and sees the same post multiple times, even across other networks, does that start to dilute the message, and is that then negating the impact?
That's a really good question. Yes, in some ways. So the cookie cutter approach of everybody sharing the exact same content can, yes, dilute the message. It depends what those networks look like. You know, for example, Ashley, I know you and I have got quite a lot of shared connections. If you and I were sharing the exact same thing, it probably would dilute its penetration slightly. However, if we were looking at a senior person within the business and a junior, likely that they would have completely different networks. One of the things that we've done to alleviate that or soften it slightly within SoAmpli is one, there are tiers, so you can edit the content before it goes out, i.e. the message that partners the landing page. Alternatively, what we would say is that after 5 people, I think it is, it does come up and prompt you and say, this has been shared the exact same post 6 times or 5 times. Would you like to put your own spin on it? But what I would recommend is, effectively, the more senior you are within the business, the more likely people are anyway to put their own spin on it, because it needs to feel like it's them coming through to their own network.
And that answers one of the questions I was going to ask next, in terms of, should advocates simply share the post, blast it out there, get the message out there, or should they be using the content that was initially shared to rewrite their own posts?
So yes, I suppose the content is relevant to go out, but we set tiers within SoAmpli. So as an example, if you've got very junior staff, I would probably be more strict around those guys just sharing what we've considered to be brand cleared, because consistency and brand tone of voice is something that a lot of companies struggle with as it goes out, and it can be very easily diluted into being sorry, I'm a bit tongue-tied today. It can very easily become diluted and look like it's not coming from the brand. However, those more trusted, more senior within the business, you'd expect those guys to understand how to keep the brand essence, but also put their own spin on it.
And that answers, you're literally answering the questions before I've even asked them. But someone in the chat right at the start said, can you discuss the risks of sharing far and wide within your employees content? And I mean, you touch upon it there. There's some people that might spin that message. And have you found that?
We have seen it. So, for example, we've got a few businesses that are using this. If I use the British Heart Foundation as an example, where they've got nearly 400 people using the platform, inevitably there you are going to have completely different perspectives, views, and vantage points on potential content which is being shared. So again, that ability from a marketing manager's perspective to be able to not shackle, but want of a better word, to ensure that the seniority is partnered with the relevant access to be able to just share the brand cleared content, or begin to create content or put your own spin on it, is vastly important, because you by no means want to jeopardize your business in any way by giving a free-for-all mentality.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. I mean, that's all we've got time for, James. I'd love to go on and answer some more of that stuff, because it was interesting. We've got a few questions that we didn't get round to, and I'd encourage them to put yes please in the chat to review the slides and get in touch with SoAmpli yourselves. It's a brilliant tool. So yeah, check it out really. And they're offering 6 months free, I believe it was, James, wasn't it?
6 weeks.
6 weeks, sorry, not 6 months.
Don't time me into that. But I will say, everybody who's saying yes, please, I'll try reach out. If not me, then somebody else within the team. And any questions that you've got, please do ask as many as you want. And often by showing the platform in a little bit more detail, it's easy for people to understand.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. So yeah, on behalf of everyone that was watching, there's people in the chat now saying great session. Totally agree. Thanks so much for your time. We'd love to have you back, basically. And then for everyone watching now, thanks very much for taking the time to watch our 4th presentation of today. We've got 2 more. The next one's actually presented by Adam Oldfield, Managing Director of Force 24, which follow-up's lovely from SoAmpli, which is their sister company. So Adam's a great speaker as well, and we're looking forward to that one. The invite link to that will be in your emails. So without further ado, I'm going to leave this chat up for the next sort of 2 or 3 minutes. So if anyone wants to put yes, please, or ask anything of me, please do. James is going to shoot off to his next point, I'm sure. So I'm going to say thanks to you now and let you get on your way. And yeah, thanks to everyone for attending. I hope you're enjoying today, and see you soon at the next webinar.